Okay, so let's unpack just firstly what is national, because what is really nice about having the two of you online right now is that I have DA and ANC representatives in my ward here. While I have got really good candidates coming up from the good party and from the other parties, but the point is that there are two distinct needs that they're both DA and ANC needs to talk about. Number one, when it comes to the law enforcement. Law enforcement is this difficult thing that we talk about, where Beckett Cele comes down to Cape Town, visits Mitchell's Plain town centre, and makes a big scene about having done something about crime, and then says that they can't do much because he's trying to do things, but he wants the votes first before he gets the crime right. On the other hand, what I have is the DA who've crippled their own law enforcement divisions, so that they can say, look, we could have helped, but really we're waiting for the ANC to fix this as a problem. So let's take a look at law enforcement and the bylaws for the municipalities, where the bylaws, emphasis being the law part of that bylaw, says that the Parks Board is supposed to enforce the bylaws of the parks. And over the last term, since the last local elections, the Parks Board, which is an engine of local government, has dismantled law enforcement. We've had in the old days, we used to have a parkie on each park. These people have been retrenched. We've had where we've had Metro Police having to keep track of things like vandalizing of state property and of first line of defense. They have been marked in their absence in Mitchell's Plain. They have been glaringly missing. So what we do see is SAP's police van driving past, but I have not, over the last election cycle, over the last term of office, seen a Metro Police driving through our areas handling that. The result has been that we've had gangsters occupying the parks, and as a result, they're offering a protection of the park service while also looking at other things. So now I need to know, Reverend Franklin, how are you going to remedy that set? Because if you were there, how do we find the budgets? How do we argue that point to bring about law enforcement at a local level like that? For Ward 81, I'm not interested in other wards. I'm interested in Ward 81. How do you handle that?
Right. Well, you've said it, and like I said it in my Facebook video that I've made, and I made it very clear that when I grew up, there were parkies, and parkies were there to manage the park, fix up the swings, and sort out the grass, etc. There were in my days there was no such thing as the city law enforcement. Now we have that, and it's been given to us via the ruling party in the province, and they've even gone as far as employing, I think, more than 100 and odd men and women, giving the mayor extensive amount of money to buy vehicles for these projects and for the job to be done. And I fully agree with you to say that we haven't seen any of that. Now you asked me the question, how am I going to deal with these things? And let me say that these are local government elections. Let me first of all say, when it comes to provincial and national, I don't ever say. I can say, and I can speak on local government elections. If I'm elected as a ward councillor, I will go into local government elections, and parliament, provincial parliament, and then we have a voice to raise the matter there.
Okay,
now,
thanks. Can I pass on to Ashley?
Yes.
After he's had his sip.
A sip of coffee. Yeah, thank you. Look, I mean, I just before. Sorry, I'm hearing an echo. Can I go ahead?
Yes, please. Okay.
So I have just prior to having received my acceptance as a aspirant candidate for for the elections for Ward 81, I served as the chairperson for the sub-forum of the Westridge CPF. And I had to then vacate that office, obviously, because of the constitutional policy. I can't serve on that board. However, I still, as of Friday and the week before, went on patrol with the members of the Neighborhood Watch. Now, let me just be very clear. I had law enforcement present with me past Friday from 7 o'clock through till half past 10, where it was stormy. But they walked with me. JP Smith joined as well, which he occasionally does when we invite him, because they give us the resources with regards to, in fact, he brought more torches and more bibs and equipment for us to use. Now, let me just state this very clearly, that the South African Police Services is party to this, the Community Policing Forum. And on their own account, we had several times had requested that the law enforcement is set up in the local precinct and to work alongside our local police services at the charge office to be able to effectively do joint operations. And periodically, Brigadier Kees Gulam has called on law enforcement to come out and assist. Now, I know that you may not have seen their physical presence, but I am a direct witness and testament to having said that they have increased their forces. We just had extra LEAP officers deployed to Mitchell's Plain precinct, and they have been welcomed by the South African Police Service. But the national instruction is that the two remains apart. Now, unless we change that national instruction, unless we make the governance of that policing service a provincial competency, we will always have Bheki Cele coming with his loud mouth and making promises and noise about what he perceives they are doing differently. We have seen a lot more engagement with the law enforcement and the South African in the Westridge area over the last 4 or 5 years now, not just in the elective period, but Minister Albert Fritz himself has been on patrol with us.
So I look at Westridge, and I'm specifically talking Westridge.
Right. So
if I take a look at Westridge, I have not seen what you're describing.
Right.
I'm talking about, and I'm gonna restrict the conversation to Ward 81.
Correct.
So yes. I'm not going to look across at Harvester Way. I'm looking at from the Dane up.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm gonna look at the Blue Gum area. So I saw the Blue Gum, and I know the criminal elements that operate from the homes in that space.
Come on.
If I take a look at what happens at the Stephen Regan Gardens at night, if I take a look at how many people have to be scared to walk from a bus stop home in the middle of the night and in winter, I have not seen what you've said.
Right.
I personally, and none of my family or my friends next door to me or around me has seen that. Right. What I do know is that there are over 850 members of our community from the other end of Woodlands, Old Woodlands and Lentegeur, all the way through to Strandfontein, 850 Neighbourhood Watch members who have jointly been able to join forces with you. And I've seen lots of photographs with Ricardo McKenzie stepping out and going with him at night, and I've seen a lot of people doing that. But the important point is that I see our community members stepping up. And I see, and so I know that Plain Chamber has raised funds to be able to at least buy them a cup of coffee and a cook sister in the middle of the night. Okay, and we've raised funds for that, but it's clear that it is cheaper to be able to take a member of our community and ask us to assist, and the guys are willing to do that, and we're increasing the number of people. But the number of people that are needed, if we just gave them as a salary a cup of coffee 2 or 3 times in the middle of the night and 2 or 3 cook sisters, it still works out to around about 30 Rand per person. If we be successful at raising the number of neighborhood watches members up to 1,000 people, that's 30,000 Rand a night. That's 30,000 Rand a night times 365 days in a year. That is a budget that we're asking them to fund themselves with. They're risking their lives to help our people get to and from bus stops safely. How do you propose we solve? Yes, go ahead, Reverend Franklin.
Can I quickly come in there? Exactly what you're saying, and Ashley.
Yes, sir.
You can hear me?
Yes, he
Yeah,
can.
I can hear you.
Okay. Can I say this? This is my biggest fear and my biggest gripe, where we have neighborhood watchers risking their lives for a bib, a torch, and a baton.
And no coffee and no cook sisters.
And there's no cover. There's no cover for them. If anyone, any gangster comes along and shoot at them and shoot one of them dead, all we're going to know and hear is that he was a good person and that he protected his community. I'm saying, if I'm elected in this Ward 81, I will make sure that I promote an insurance policy, an endowment life cover for all our neighborhood watchers, not just in Ward 81. Because if anything happens to them, they are not covered, and their families are not covered. That is my problem.
So, I mean, it sounds like Reverend Williams has followed my Instagram post where it was clearly stated by JP Smith himself, where he verbalized the insurance that is being discussed at caucus as we speak. I mean, it's been the process for the past almost 2 months has now been a more vigorous period of discussion around ensuring that they are covered, but more so how to deploy LEAP officers. And I am not going to lie and bring things to the fore, but the reality is that this is something that the DA government, I can tell you how Councillor Eddie Andrews, who has is the outgoing ward councillor for Ward 78 back then, it's now Ward 81, has provided coffee, sugar, and kusistas through the use of either, I can give you names, Ms. Irma Cotton at the Scouts Club has assisted with that, Mr. Hanif van Diemen in Kronendal, where Auntie Fauzi has been providing and assisting in that regard. So they are working vigorously together to ensure that there is...
Yes. So, Reverend, wanted you to yes, go.
Can I say that coffee and sugar and milk and donuts is not going to save your life?
No, that is not what I'm saying. I'm really responding to what Mr. Action is saying. And on your insurance, I have clearly indicated that that is what is already being stated.
Okay, fine. So can I stop both of you now for a second? I think the point is being made. Number one, the challenge which I as a voter have to struggle with,
yes,
is knowing that neither the ANC nor the DA have sufficient control over the park that's outside of my door. That both of you are hoping to lobby on my base, at my benefit, to my benefit. And you're hoping that I'm going to vote for you so that you can do that. Now, here's the problem. Both the DA and the ANC, when you're in power, if I voted for you to be in, and I want something specific to happen in my ward, both of your parties say that you got in because of them, and I lose control over what you can do for my community the moment you're in office, because you can't vote with your own conscience. We have seen Trevor Manuel having to put his pride in his pocket and go against everything he said before so that he can toe the party line. And we've seen the DA doing the same. So both of you are hoping to get into being a councillor, and both of you have chosen a party that will put party ahead of my own community. How do both of you respond?
Can I go first?
Go for it.
First of all, let me say that in this local government elections, as much as we are saying it is the ANC, for the voting of your ward, it's all about the individual that you are giving the authority to be your voice. Now, let me say, as a pastor, I don't make promises, sir. I make a pledge, because if I make a promise, God is going to hold me responsible.
And we will.
Pledge. and this I'm saying to you with all due respect. If I come in, I give the Ward 81 community, I ask them for 100 days to make a change in this ward. If I don't, I'm quite willing to step down.
That's a challenge, but I hear you. Ashley, your response.
So my response is quite simple. I've lived Westridge my life. I have not come into voting as a politician, because I am no politician. I am a leader and an activist. I have over 25 years in my community served people that once they've heard, they're saying, "Oh, Ashley's done," and my footprint of the past is one testament to what already have been put in place. My move going forward is to ensure that I work with the Franklin Williams of our area, with the Collins of our area, and the Musas of our area, because we need to be able to find a way of being able to hold our party, because party does not take precedent over people. People make party. And so if when I'm elected into office, I speak into the faith aspect. When I'm elected into office, I've already set out to establish wards in various faculties or ministries, be it sport, business economic, crime and safety, and seniors as a priority in that as well, and youth development projects. So I've already established these competencies over many years. I bring that to the party and extend it through my limited 1 million rand budget that I would be allocated in order to see that the people gets to be heard correctly. And so the people will hold me accountable.
So Ashley and Reverend Franklin, the concern obviously which we're going to have is at least knowing that you understand going into this, that there is a concern that we, the voters, are going to be forcing you into a position of conflict constantly, where the voters' needs have to be put before the party's needs. And we understand exactly how that has played out for both the DA and the ANC over the last 30 years. But let's take that and put that aside for right now. There is the need for the health services. We have that. And that is national, not local. We understand that. We have a need for law enforcement, which can be brought down to local. Often enough, we're distracted by looking at what's happening at national, at SAPS, but we have to look at that. Thirdly, we are having to say, yes, we are looking at being able to say, you have to be holding yourself accountable to the needs of our community. Can I get both of you to talk to me about what you know about the economics of Westridge? Do you know who's contributing? And I'm not talking about ShopRite checkers. I'm talking about, do you know the nature of the economics? What drives Westridge mostly? You want to flip a coin? Ashley, you want to go first?
Yeah, no, sure. Let me go. So we have in our community of Westridge, well, Westgate Mall falls just outside of our border, but still is very much responsible. When they purchased that land, they
no. I'm saying specifically, I'm excluding the ShopRite checkers and the big malls. I'm saying the voters who are working from home and who are local to you, who fall within this ward. Do you know who they are?
I don't. I'm going to put that straight out there. I don't know, except the local infrastructure of small businesses and NPOs that are developing small entrepreneurship. And that's how a lot of them are getting ahead. So we cannot discount that, because they are your small hairdressers, your spaza shops. They all hold a huge piece of the economic development in our community, and how we get them to participate. The Naidus of Cedar, the Mr. Hassan Khan from the Westridge Shell Garage. So those individuals, I'm already engaging with them, and the doctors like Dr. Kada over here, as well as what's his name? That my doctor, I can't get to him now, but they are also.
So can I ask the Reverend Franklin quickly? He's trying to chip in his. Reverend Franklin, okay. You got the mic.
Very much that I agree with Ashley. It's those spaza shops, and you have your dentist, and you have obviously even your liquor outlets like the Bigadi Rebel and the Vintage International,
Premium Pub, Willie.
It's for us as ward councillors need to engage with these business people, and to, Ashley was talking about the Hassan brothers, and when I went to the Hassan brothers and I said to them, I'm standing in the ward, and while I was busy putting up my poster right in front of his garage, and he had much to say, and after I was done talking to him, I said to him, what have you contributed? What have you contributed? You're saying you've got a business here, but you're not staying here. What have you contributed to this community? He couldn't give me an answer, to be very honest with you.
He hasn't contributed. In fact, they choose not to, here or in Colorado.
Absolutely.
But yes, Ashley, you remembered Willie. So William Goliath, and before that his father from Premium Bar. And the Aprils, both Celeste and Craig April from Las Vegas, and Tina Swigelaar, whose husband passed away last year, Shane Swigelaar from Grillfather, and the guys from there are quite a few undertakers in the area. There are quite a few people who passed away, but who are still busy operating as field. I mean, the Laguma, the paint groups of people. There are a lot of people, but predominantly Westridge. What is unique about Westridge versus Portland's or Rockland's or anybody else is this is the place where people come to throughout the night to party. So this is Las Vegas and Premium's place, and this is where the roadhouses are. This is the place that people come to take photographs in Westridge, at Westridge Gardens. This is the place where they come to for the sports. So that's what's unique about Westridge as an offering. So the big question is, if you're wanting to be able to encourage employment, then the initiatives that we need to look at is how do you use your budgets and how do you use your influence to be able to grow that. So I would like to know how you intend growing our local economy, given firstly that yes, there isn't much of an understanding of what that economy is about. But how do you grow it then anyway?
Sure. Can I go?
Yep.
So one of the things that deliberately needs to see to our kind of conditions around, which is your kind of cleaning of areas and employment of a local workforce to ensure that that is done, hinges on the EPWP program. And very often you find people coming from other areas to come and do that. And so part of the budget I'd like to see allocated, that there is, because one of our problems that we have, and I had found this with the C3s, is that when I log a C3, I have to wait 2 or 3 days and be nagged by our voters to see that job done. Whereas if I had a dedicated EPWP team that is employed from the community to work in the community, they will then be managing the streets, the parks, the graffiti, all of those things, and they would be called on quite easily because they are working within the ward, for the ward. So that is one critical one. And the local stores, you know, your stores, when they do employ people, to be looking at how to have that conversation, because I've been speaking to the Naidus and Asan to see how your parking attendants is also vetted in a way that they are not the people that is robbing our shoppers, our commuters, when they come to the local stores. You know, so those are all critical things. Our car guards is undervalued and they are not given enough resources. So developing their capacity and also ensuring that they are resourced and also understanding their duty or responsibility. They're not just there begging to ensure that they get their next fix, because a lot of them are struggling with substance use disorders as well.
You know, we're talking about our budgets and how we're going to utilize them. And if we look at today's day and age, we look at a predominant young community, especially in
that you've missed out a little bit of what Reverend Franklin was saying. And I think that we've spoken about that. So if I could summarize what he had said, I think while you are all hearing.
Okay, that's just the two devices.
Okay, it's quite clear Sean re-entered the chat.
Okay. Okay, it's not completely entered yet, so let me just make sure it goes back in. It's still busy connecting. Karima, do you want to ask a question in the meantime?
Yes. Hello, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity. We were talking about your businesses in the area. Now, it's not only Ward 81, it's all areas that you have quite a number of early childhood development centers. And these are women in business. There's going to be a migration shift from Department of Social Development to the Department of Education. I'm not sure how aware you are of the shift. But my question would be, do you know and understand the dynamics of an early childhood development center? Do you know and understand what the principal needs to go through to get herself registered? Do you understand the program that she has to follow? Do you appreciate the importance of the foundation of learning? Because it seems like early childhood development centers have always been the Cinderella of education. This perception needs to change. How are you going to play a role as a ward councillor to ensure that the importance of early childhood development can be so?
Anyone want to go first? Must flip a coin.
Okay, no, I'm quite happy to go.
Yeah.
So the shift has been taking gradual steps towards what you have just mentioned, Karima, and that look, it still resides with the Department of Education, and there's a lot of policies in place that is so many children or so many toilets per so many children, so many learners per so many educators, and they also have to have a training program that they have to undergo in order, not apart from them being vetted. So there's a lot of dynamics associated. Sorry, a lot of dynamics associated to allowing them to provide that kind of service. Some of the challenges that they have experienced is the neighbors moaning about the songs and the noise that comes from early childhood education centers, and so I'm very averse with the kind of challenges that they are facing on a daily basis. So we have to be able to assist the early childhood centers, because our parents cannot go to work without these centers operating. Our parents has to go to work, and sadly many of them have to leave very early. So the early childhood centers would be accepting the children from as 5:30 already in the morning to 6 o'clock, so that they can get back to the bus station to head off to work. So the challenge lies with the accreditation of these centers. And so I've already had engagements with Mr. Zana, who's with the Department of Social Development, and requested assistance in this regard. And so I want to take that to a next level where the DSD and education takes responsibility for whatever political and for policy challenges that they have to meet. But they must understand that these are the plights of our community and our parents that are running these centers. Many of them have to go to Khayelitsha to go and get their registration effectively set out correctly. So there are those kind of needs that needs to be put into place. So when I'm in office, will definitely set up a ward committee that has a dedicated focus, because that might not be my niche or my forte, but I know that there is someone in this ward that has that as a passion and a drive. So he or she will serve on that committee to help ensure that that is done correctly.
Thank you, Ashley. Reverend Franklin.
Yeah, Karina, I hear you, and I understand really what you are going through, and I know how difficult it is to really establish these early childhood development centers. Being a chairperson of a primary school of Hazeldean, and I've been on governing bodies for many, many years, and I have seen the plight of how principals and business ladies want to start these early development centers. And there's one right here in my road, funny enough, we all had to sign, Karima, for 3 days, to have a school for the teachers to be taught on how to deal and how to help with early childhood development. And it's really never took off, I must be honest with you. And I think for the other thing that Ashley has said, how our communities or neighbors are complaining about the noise, etc., etc. We should be looking at really having to develop more of the centers on vacant grounds to get these centers established. And I hear what Ashley is saying. You would like to establish a committee, but it's all up to having to get, first of all, the property and the ground to establish these things. And when I am elected, I would really, speak to the powers that be to really give some ground to these people to develop early development centers.
Good evening, gentlemen, ladies. Yes, definitely. This is something that's very close to my heart. It's the youth. And then obviously the sector that is contributing a lot, which is sports. So if I was just take it up from there, Mr. Potts, kudos to you for always being involved in the rehabilitation processes in Mitchell's Plain. But you know what? There is after the effect. What we in the sports sector is involved in is the pre-rehabilitation, meaning before the kids go off the rails, we're already there. So going forward, this sector, what is your plans, especially where facilities and resources are for the sports clubs, the sports organizations in Mitchell's Plain, to further enhance and do their work? Because I can tell you now, money is always available for rehabilitation centers and to get children who've been going through the drug journey, to get them back onto the road again. Where there is no funds really available for sports clubs and for sports associations to get things moving forward so that there isn't the aftermath of what we're having. Okay, so that's the one section. The other section, obviously, I don't know why it hasn't come to the fore yet, but this is the plain chamber discussion, meaning it's a business organization discussion. So on your level, and this is an urgent plea, and I've had this already in my Ward 43 with my ward councillor, that when and if whoever is coming in to be the ward councillor in all of the wards, that they should make it imperative that there is a business sector on every committee. Because why? That is the core of everything. If there isn't a thriving business with a positive cash flow in all spheres, then there will always be lacks. So that is my plea to whoever's going to come in the ward committees, establish 100% at least a business sector so that we can revive businesses in all wards in Mitchell's Plain. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, lady.
Ashley.
Yes, sir.
Alphabetically, you want to comment?
Yes, absolutely. So with regards to youth development, I agree with you 100%, Mr. Ikshan. The prevention is better than cure is a critical factor. And sports is absolutely a vital kind of avenue, as well as music, to be able to redirect the energy of our young people. Many of them who are standing around aimlessly unaware of the dangers that they are heading into. And so they get trapped in substances where in my previous employ, I had my main focus as providing treatment service, which I have always said, and I continue to hold, is a major problem because we are waiting for them to become addicts before we help them. We have to have prevention programs. That is why within the Ward 81, we've already established the DAD program, which is an acronym for Decision Affects. One decision affects destinies. And we have 186 young people that has been registered through this program. And we have seen the effectiveness of shifting them from substance challenges and their families. So we have educated them around the dangers and also how to assist their fellow classmate and their friend in the community or neighbor on how to be able to make sure that they get access to services before they cross that line from substance use to substance abuse. So yes, sports would be an avenue that we definitely look at. Your comment around business development and business inclusion when it comes to ward committees, we cannot depend on a small budget that has been allocated to the ward. And when elected, I have to, in your earlier comment, Mr. Atchin, about economics within our ward, we cannot allow businesses, because in terms of business growth and development, they are expected to contribute to corporate social investment. And they get a levy for that, they get a rebate for that. So they would need to be able to contribute towards the development within their local environment. And so we want to hold them accountable to that, but not just do it in a punitive way where we are saying to them, you must. We are saying to them, we want you to contribute because this is how it will benefit you, and also change your scorecard in the BEE because your levels will increase if you're contributing to a all-black run NPO or community development project.
Reverend Franklin?
Yeah, Ikshan, I'm so glad that you brought up this topic in terms of sport. You know, I have a daughter that is a ballroom and Latin dancer, and this is one of the things that we don't really see in our community, you know, where you find young people that is interested in certain sport. and we should really try and get our young people more involved in and it's not just soccer and cricket and rugby, but there's many other sports, and even like Ashley has said, you know, even in music, we really should get them involved. But what my problem is that there's no facilities for this, and we should create facility. And I'm staying right opposite the indoor center in Portland, and I can assure you, you know, this indoor center is empty every day. When I was a young man, I stayed in Salt River, and we had a club there called Silver Tree. And in Silver Tree, we were, you know, we would pay R1 to go and do a little bit of weightlifting and bodybuilding, etc. We don't have these kind of things in our communities, and this is something that I would really look at to really get ward committees together and sports people together to establish this kind of sport in our communities. Going back to our business sector, and I hear what Ashley is saying with the BEE and having to ask business people to contribute, but we must also remember that, you know, business people, when there's an NGO, we should register these NGOs for an 18, I think it's an 18A or 18.3 certificate that we can get. That we can hand to these business people when they give us money, that they can claim this money back in terms of tax. So we should really try and engage with these business people and say, look, if we're an NGO, or if there's an NGO that you can support, this is what they can give, and this is what we would like you to offer to us. And that is what I am all about, to really see how we can work with our business people.
Thank you so much, David Franklin. Okay, so we're coming to the end of. I wanted to put just time aside, but I want to ask one last area so we can pick that up. And we've spoken about business, we've spoken about health, we've spoken about security, we've spoken about the different areas as well. We need to be able to give commitment. I just want a quick number from both of you. Do you know, off the top of your head, how many churches there are just in Ward 81? Quick number. Pick a number from 1 to. Yeah.
I would probably say close to 20, Ashley, if I'm not wrong.
Ashley?
Your mainstream churches, it'll be about 20, but there's a lot of churches in the schools and in the halls also. So we're looking at close to 40.
Yeah.
That is just in Ward 81.
Correct.
If I take a look at, we've also got around about, just so just you understand, just Ward 81. We've got, you can't move anywhere in Mitchell's Plain for more than 500 meters without bumping into a place of worship. In every street, you've got a minimum of 2 businesses operating from a home. Typically, you've got more than 2 businesses in every street. Often enough, these are people that would love to be able to benefit from an EPWP program, but we find that it is the councillors who benefit, not the small businesses. We find that in every one of the streets, there are a couple of gang members. We find that we've got unemployment in every street. We find that the faith-based organizations have got a minimum of around about 100 families that each of them are looking after. So we find that the elements of some form of solution seem to be staring us in the face. Of working with faith-based organizations and home-based businesses, and bringing together just the EPWP programs and the other programs, the NPO programs, the range of programs that are in government's hands, that are normally held by the councillor and his team. I'm commenting here particularly around the fact that Ashley, you mentioning the fact that you've done maybe 100, 150, maybe 200 youth. I don't think that is just from Ward 81. I think that is 200 across the whole of Mitchell's Plain.
Correct.
So when I actually look at the percentage that comes out of Ward 81 versus the size of the need, because we're always impressed with what we've done, but when we stop and ask her how much we should have done, we start finding that what we have actually done is extremely small in relation to what we should have done. So understanding Ward 81 is understanding how to bring together faith-based organizations, home-based businesses, and resources that are in the environment, and bring resources which are locked away inside of the city's budget, where we never get a report that says how much has not been spent until it comes to the end of a cycle, and then there's this mad rush to spend what we can quickly, instead of knowing that it could have been used to the benefit of the ward itself. So our focus is around this particular area. I would like both of you to start closing off your closing remarks with that in mind. If you were elected, what would you want to do to bring about some kind of a response to drawing together the faith-based organizations and the home businesses? And I'd like you also to say that if you, for whatever God intends you to do, are not chosen to be the councillor, then how do you intend still putting the pressure on to achieve those things over the next couple of years as we lead up to the national elections? Reverend Franklin, can I ask you to start?
Yes, sir. You know, being a pastor in a community, I do have quite a few affiliations with many of the other pastors in Ward 81, and I would, should I be elected, bring those pastors together, and we will look at the need of our community. If you look at the flyer,
hopefully not being exclusive to the Christian community in that one, or just the so pastors, priests, and imams, I'm assuming.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. If you look at my flyer I've put up there, I said I would be, you know, I would like to work with the non-profitable organizations, the churches, the community, the pastors, the imams, and I would like to work and engage with them to work on the plight of our people. And if we look at how the struggle is, especially with our young people and unemployment amongst our young people, I would like to bring about to really set up, you know, some sort of committee where we will engage with our young people and how we can get them to start off with maybe either giving them or getting them some work, or giving them some sort of workshop where they can start with their own entrepreneurship. It is very sad to say that when we, you know, when we in our communities, and once again we look at our people and the plight of our people and how they struggle. You said on every second corner there is gangsterism. In every second corner there is people that's unemployed. You know, I would like to engage with our community and make sure that our ward is safe and secure, and also that our people are being looked after.
Thank you so much. Ashley.
Yeah, so the concept of ensuring that there is inclusion is quite a critical one. So for me, the reality is that we have a budget as a ward councillor. Very often that budget is determined by a number of factors. When elected into office, I am very definitely pushing towards ensuring that, like I said, all those various different factors, and one which I thought you're going to spend a lot more time on is the food security aspect, which is a critical matter, that across religious boundaries, we have to ensure that there is food security to our community. And although Westridge in many respects has always been seen as the uppity area. They are also taking strain and struggling in a number of ways. So going forward, I would like to be seeing that there is members of our Mitchells Plain Westridge specific Ward 81 area or sector included in that whole discussion, where a budget is assigned and allocated. And the monthly reporting, I have started a process with MailChimp, and I've got a number of chat groups across the Westridge community already established through the neighborhood watches and other platforms. We are able to engage them at a drop of a message. So I'm going to be moving towards that, where a MailChimp newsletter will be able to be established, so that we can not just talk about the niceties, but also the ugly, and share the reality of what is currently happening, and ask for comment and involvement from the local community. So the church, the imam, I work very closely with Shafiq or Farouk Abbas at the Westridge Mosque, and he does an amazing feeding program out in that side. Sultan Bauer, who is Mr. Shafiq Davids. So working very closely with those establishments and seeing that there are other competencies included in that, where we have links. We have trained just over 40 NGOs to bring them up to compliance, so that they can be ready to access the grants and aids that is being advertised in the community papers. So we're wanting to be doing more of that. But again, in closing, I'm wanting to say that out of the Westridge Ward 81, which is Rocklands as well, or part of Rocklands, we need to ensure that the voices of competent, effective community people that is willing to get involved and ensure that I am held accountable as the ward councillor, and not just held accountable, but they would be a part of a process that ensures that there is inclusion, where responsibility is a part of that accountability, so that the business, church, faith-based, NPO, ECD, sports, all those faculties are included in the process and the discussion.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Reverend Franklin, for tonight. It would have been nice to have had a few more people on, but I think we managed to get a detailed view from the ANC and the DA's representatives on this one. It really is sad that I couldn't get Colleen on board as a good party representative, or any of the other guys. It would have been nice to have had a more rounded view, but I think that the direction that we've taken for this one has been helpful. Karima, do you want to add any last comments or any thoughts? Reynard or Ikshan, the same?
Yeah, it's been interesting. I was literally hanging, so to speak, on your lips. But as far as I'm concerned, it's all words. And these words have been spoken. It's nothing new. But we do have a paradigm shift in our thoughts nowadays after the pandemic. So I hope that your words can actually make a turnaround one day, or in the next after the next election. And all the best to you both, eh?
Thank you so much, Anna.
Yeah, basically the same thing. The proof of the pudding is obviously in the tasting. And you guys are all vying both of it for that big pudding to be the ward councillor in your respective ward. And going forward, best of everything for both of you who's present tonight on this medium, and the others who was not, same to them as well. But the fact is, like our secretary has mentioned, when all is done and all the fanfare is over, the real work starts. So we are, as the Plain Chamber, looking forward to working with anybody who's taking up the chair there. So going forward again, thank you very much for being on this medium with us this evening. And thank you very much for partaking in it and sharing your views with us. God bless and go forward. Thank you and good night.